Before the world sees your worth, you must decide it. Before the first dollar touches your hand, you must command your mind. Before you are celebrated, you must be disciplined in silence. Because wealth, real wealth, begins not in your wallet, but in the furnace of your thoughts. Look around. Everything you see, every building, every brand, every invention, every movement began as a single invisible idea in someone's mind. A thought, a whisper in the dark. That's where billionaires are born, not in bank accounts, but in brains set on fire with belief. But here's the tragedy. Most people live like prisoners in a world of limitations they never agreed to. They wake up each day rehearsing the same doubts, the same fears, the same narrative of not yet, not good enough, maybe one day. They die with dreams still locked inside their heads, not because they lack talent, but because they never dared to think like the 1%. So I ask you now, before the world pays you anything, are you willing to pay the price of a billionaire mindset? Because the truth is, long before Elon Musk was changing the auto industry, long before Oprah was sitting on a talk show stage, long before Steve Jobs held up that sleek little rectangle of magic we call an iPhone, they thought different. And not just different from their peers. They thought bigger, deeper, longer, harder. They believed in the unseen. They obsessed over the impossible. And while others scrolled, judged, doubted, and consumed, they created. This is not about becoming a billionaire in numbers. This is about becoming one in mentality. And that begins with the first rule. What you tolerate in your mind becomes your ceiling. Most people build a mental house of poverty with walls of excuses, a roof of fear, and floors so weak they collapse under pressure. But the billionaire mindset builds cathedrals of thought. It says, why not me? It says, I don't need proof, I need purpose. It says, the world bends for those who refuse to bow. So understand this. The starting line of your wealth journey is not a job or a product or a lucky break. It is your thinking. It is the questions you ask. It is the standard you demand. It is the invisible blueprint your mind draws long before the world sees a single result. Napoleon Hill once said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Not maybe, not if the economy is right, but can. And that belief, that unshakable knowing, is the cornerstone of every fortune ever made. But belief doesn't come naturally. It must be earned, forged, fed, reinforced through discipline. Because your brain is a battlefield. 1,000 silent voices every day are trying to convince you to play it safe, to shrink your vision, to be realistic. But the billionaire mind laughs at realistic. Because what's realistic to the average is insulting to the exceptional. Henry Ford was called insane for dreaming of an engine that ran without horses. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination. The Wright brothers were told man was not meant to fly. Thank God they didn't listen. And neither should you. Because the world will only reflect the magnitude of your internal beliefs. If you believe you're meant for crumbs, life will hand you crumbs. But if you carry yourself like you're building empires, life will test you, and if you persist, life will reward you. But belief alone isn't enough. You need clarity. Billionaires don't chase everything. They chase one thing with relentless precision. While others multitask themselves into mediocrity, the visionary locks in. Focus sharpens their mind like a blade. They say no to 99 things so they can say hell yes to the one that matters. Think of Jeff Bezos in his garage, obsessed with one idea: online books. Not streaming, not groceries, not cloud computing, not yet. Just books. Mastery first, expansion second. Clarity like a sniper. And that clarity carved the path to Amazon's domination. So what is your obsession? What hill are you willing to die on? What solution eats at your brain so loudly that you can't sleep until it exists? If you don't know, keep digging. Clarity is not gifted. It is earned through reflection, through suffering, through the discipline of listening to the whisper of your own soul, while the world screams its distractions. And once clarity is found, you must wrap it in vision. Because vision is the currency of the future. It is the seed from which destiny grows. Most people look to the past and see regret. But the billionaire, they see forward. They see the invisible bridge between today's struggle and tomorrow's triumph, and they walk it with boldness. Vision makes your struggle sacred. It tells you why the pain is worth it, why the rejection, the ridicule, the setbacks, why it all matters. Without vision, every obstacle is a wall. With vision, every obstacle is a ladder. Think of Thomas Edison. 10,000 failures in pursuit of the light bulb. 10,000. You know what he said? I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That's vision. That's fire in the soul that no storm can put out. But here's where most fall short. They have belief. They have clarity. They have vision. But they lack the one thing that separates the dreamer from the doer. Discipline. Discipline is the silent architect of success. It's not glamorous, it's not sexy, but it's the daily promise you keep with your future self even when no one is watching. It's waking up early when comfort says sleep. It's learning one more hour when your brain begs for rest. It's sacrificing the dopamine of distraction for the dignity of legacy. No one becomes world-class by accident. Behind every billionaire you admire is a cemetery of lazy choices they buried, and a temple of habits they built in silence. Because discipline is not punishment, it is liberation. It is freedom from the prison of impulse. It is the tool that turns vision into empire. So now the question is, are you willing to delay pleasure to demand power? Are you willing to trade excuses for execution? Because discipline alone, practiced with obsession, will get you farther than talent ever could. But you must move. Discipline without action is paralysis in disguise. The greatest minds in history were not just thinkers, they were doers. Carnegie didn't just dream about steel, he built it. Rockefeller didn't just imagine oil profits, he pumped them. Beyoncé didn't wish to be great, she trained, bled, and broke herself to reach the stage you see today. You can study, plan, vision board, visualize, but without action, you are just a spectator in the arena of life. Action creates momentum, and momentum creates miracles. So act. Today. Now. While your heart still burns. While your mind is still sharp. While your desire still dares to scream. You don't need permission. You don't need perfection. You don't need the applause. You need movement. Forward. Even if it's messy, even if it's small, because speed kills fear and action silences doubt. And when you move not just once, but consistently, you tap into the power most people never taste: momentum. That sacred energy that builds with every brave step, compounding in silence until one day it explodes. And the world looks at you and says, overnight success. But you'll know the truth. There were no nights off. There were only silent battles you won when no one clapped, no one watched, no one cared. That's the price. To think like a billionaire before you make your first dollar is to act like your future is non-negotiable. Not a wish, not a maybe, but a demand etched into your bones. And when you move with that kind of conviction, you unlock another secret: gratitude. Not the soft, shallow kind, not the kind you post for likes. I'm talking about the fierce, grounded, spiritual gratitude that keeps you sane when the pressure mounts. The kind that sees opportunity inside struggle and smiles through scarcity because you're not measuring wealth by what's in your hand, but what's in your heart. Gratitude rewires your brain to see differently. It changes how you interpret pain, failure, time. Most people curse their problems, but billionaires, they bless them. They say, thank you for the challenge, it means I'm alive. It means I'm moving. It means I have the chance to rise. Because here's what they know. The path to greatness is paved with discomfort. And the more you can love that discomfort, welcome it. Breathe it in. Make it your companion, the faster you separate yourself from the average. Gratitude turns hardship into harvest. And only those who are grateful in obscurity will ever be trusted with the spotlight. But make no mistake, the spotlight is a test. And life will test you. Again and again. That's why the next piece is critical: adaptability. The world is in motion. Economies shift, algorithms change, friends become strangers, markets dry up. What worked yesterday may fail you tomorrow, but the billionaire mind doesn't panic, it pivots. You must become like water, fluid, unshaken, powerful in any container. The rigid mind breaks, the flexible one survives. It grows, it reinvents, it endures. When COVID-19 swept the globe, do you know what happened? Some people froze, some waited, but the visionary minds adapted. Zoom exploded, remote businesses scaled. Innovators found new needs, new markets, new ways. Because pressure doesn't just destroy, it reveals. And the ones who win are the ones who bend without breaking. So ask yourself, are you married to the method or to the mission? Because your method will change, but your mission, your why, must be bulletproof. That's how Elon Musk survived the near collapse of Tesla, how Netflix pivoted from DVDs to streaming, how Apple went from computers to culture, because they weren't in love with how they did things. They were in love with why they existed, and that North Star gave them the fuel to endure what most could not. And you will need that fuel, because no matter how smart, how focused, how driven you will fall, you will be doubted, delayed, rejected. And in those moments, when the world feels cold and you question everything, you must draw from the deep well of resilience. Resilience is the quiet roar that says, not yet. When the deal falls through, when the investor says no, when the idea flops, when your bank account mocks you, you breathe deep and say, this is the middle, not the end. Abraham Lincoln lost election after election, faced breakdowns, buried his child, and still rose to become one of the most revered leaders in history, because resilience doesn't ask for applause. It doesn't demand ease. It shows up anyway. It bleeds and keeps walking. And you, if you are to become more than just a dreamer, must wear resilience like armor. It is not the absence of wounds. It is the decision that wounds will not define you. But resilience alone is not enough. You must learn. Every single day, the billionaire mindset is addicted to learning, not school, not titles, but growth. Constant, intentional, ferocious growth. Because you cannot solve million-dollar problems with $100 thinking. Warren Buffett reads for hours daily. Bill Gates takes reading retreats. Every titan of industry, in some form or another, has one thing in common. They never stop learning. Because when you stop learning, you stop earning. When you stop questioning, you stop growing. When you stop growing, you die long before your body ever gives out. So open your mind to books, to mentors, to podcasts, to failures, especially to failures. Because failure is the most brutal, most honest, most loyal teacher you will ever have. It doesn't flatter you, it forges you. And every time you fall and rise again, you earn a new layer of strength, of humility, of insight. These layers are invisible at first, but they stack. And one day they are the very layers that separate you, the foundation upon which empires are built. So now, here you are, armed with belief, fueled by clarity, burning with vision, disciplined to act, grateful in the storm, flexible to the unknown, resilient under pressure, hungry to learn. You haven't made your first dollar yet, but you've already made your first million in mindset. And that is where true wealth begins. Because now you know, the real riches were never paper, never coins, never digits on a glowing screen. The real treasure was you. It was always you, raw, unpolished, unseen. You, the storm the world hasn't met yet. You, the future billionaire in thought, long before the dollars followed. You who dared to believe when there was no evidence. You who chose to rise, again and again, in silence. Let them laugh now. Let them doubt. Let them scroll past you like you're invisible. Because they don't see the fire in your chest. They don't see the nights you whispered dreams into the dark and answered them with action. They don't see how many times you've buried the old version of yourself just to get closer to the one the world will never forget. Because the truth is, the world never needed another billionaire with a yacht. It needed a soul on fire, a light that makes others remember their own, the kind of light that walks into a room and shifts the gravity, the kind of presence that no bank account could measure because its value is built in spirit, in mind, in discipline, in legacy. Do you understand what legacy means? It means they'll speak your name when you're gone. It means they'll feel your fingerprints on systems, structures, ideas, and lives you'll never even meet. It means you lived so fully, so unapologetically, so purposefully, that even death has no power over your story. But it starts here. Now. Not with applause, not with status, not with permission. It starts with a whisper inside you saying, I was not born for ordinary. I was not meant to repeat the cycle. I was made to redefine it. You think like a billionaire not because it's cool, not because it's trendy, but because it is necessary to escape the gravity of mediocrity. Because mediocrity has hands. It will grab your ankles every time you rise. It will whisper lies into your dreams. It will wrap you in comfort and call it peace. But it is not peace. It is slow death. So you fight back with thought, with action, with clarity so sharp it slices through doubt, with purpose so strong it wakes you up when the world sleeps. You wake with intent. You move with precision. You speak with conviction. You think with power. You don't envy. You build. You don't compete. You create. You don't react. You design. Because you know the game was never out there, it was always in here. Let them chase the next big thing. Let them gamble on coins, trends, noise. You invest in the timeless, in mindset, in wisdom, in principles that outlast empires. Because what you are building in your mind, in your habits, in your soul, is not a trend. It is a dynasty, a way of living, a way of thinking, a standard that won't die with you. It will ripple into your family, into your community, into the world. That is the billionaire way. And yes, the money will come, because value always finds its mirror. And when you become valuable enough, the world has no choice but to open its vaults. That's how wealth flows, not to the loudest, not to the luckiest, but to the ones who prepare. The ones who become a magnet for miracles by thinking, living, and acting in alignment with greatness long before the applause. So don't wait. Don't wait for validation. Don't wait for the plan to be perfect. Don't wait for the fear to leave. Walk forward with it. Build anyway. Speak anyway. Show up anyway. Because you right now, as you are enough to begin. And beginning is everything. The path is not linear. It is a climb, a crawl, a storm, a rebirth. And somewhere along the way, you will stop chasing dollars because you'll realize the person you're becoming is worth far more than anything you ever hoped to earn. This is the truth they don't teach. The truth that lives in biographies and blood. The truth that whispers in the silence after failure. The truth that Napoleon Hill discovered in steel mills and sweat. That your mind, aligned with a definite purpose, powered by faith, protected by discipline, and shaped by resilience, is the most unstoppable force on earth. So if you've ever asked, how do I become a billionaire? Start here. Before the money. Before the office. Before the praise. Think like one. Move like one. Live like one. And one day, without needing it, the world will call you one. Not because of what you have, but because of who you chose to become. And that is wealth beyond measure.